Next facilities meeting will be talking about diversity and cost.
Affinity light shades, right?
I love to read. Put your name on it. I audio listen to podcasts.
No, I was going to take it. And I printed it off my email. Is it? Here, that's still alive. Definitely.
Exactly sure what they have.
No. It's not your job. No, it's not your job. I just where you are. Just care. Something in the books. And the constituents come up, you gotta go to a policy. Part of the tour, part of the course. Okay, we'll just stay tuned. I'm good at thinking. I
don't think it's the case anymore.
That makes perfect.
What was like who lost Massachusetts?
Just say it.
That's wild.
Really know how to do it. It's just for home.
Keep it on there.
I do the. Oh, yeah, I'll play it.
We're all Jones stuff. Moving up. Schoolwork first, the others on. I'm catching good. Zero.
Oh, man.
Well, this.
What do you do? The sign. It's all read now.
Those are the other ones.
All right.
It doesn't turn, go back to black once you find out.
Like I have three kids too. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Would you please join me at the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
first order of business is action on minutes. To see what action the board wishes to take regarding approval of the minutes from the meeting held on October 28th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'll second that.
Betty Besson. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approval of the minutes from the meeting held on October 28th, 2024? It's unanimous, thank you. Next are citizen comments. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak this evening? Seeing none, I will move on to board member comments. Are there any board members that would like to speak? Moving on to the chairman's report. This evening, we will host a workshop that will focus on policy JICJ, which is student cell phone use, which is currently being reviewed by the policy committee. The workshop will be an informal discussion and will afford board members and other individuals an opportunity to weigh in on this topic before the board takes any formal action. Student cell phones are certainly a matter of the moment. I'd like to encourage those in attendance to stay for the workshop and join the conversation. The board values your perspective and welcomes your contribution. I will be requesting that the board enter into executive session this evening. If approved, the executive session will take place following the workshop. Only board members and the superintendent can be present for the executive session. Once the executive session is ended, we will return to open session only to adjourn. That concludes the chairman's report. Moving on to upcoming committee and board meetings. The next SAD44 board meeting will be held Monday, December 16th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Telstar Library. The Education Committee will meet Thursday, December 12th at 3 p.m. in the Norway Savings Bank Conference Room. Finance and Negotiations Committee will meet Tuesday, December 10th at 5:30 in the Superintendent's office. Facilities and Personnel will meet Monday, December 16th at 5:15 here at Telstar in room 131. Policy Committee will meet Monday, December 2nd at 10 a.m. also in room 131 here at Telstar. And the Region 9 Cooperative Board will meet Wednesday, December 4th at 6 p.m. at the Region 9 School of Applied Technology in Mexico. Moving on to committee reports. We're reporting for the Education Committee. Ms. Kaya.
The Education Committee met with Lindsay Lecce last month to learn about the BAR grant that's been implemented into the middle school. They're on year 2 of a 3-year implementation for this grant. The grant has been funded solely by the Department of Education, so there's been no school funds. It's a very expensive grant, and we've gotten it for free, which is great for the district. It looks at a lot of whole person, looking at the whole child in the middle school, and they're working on, making sure that every kid is welcomed and assessed and has their needs met during their time at the middle school. Like I said, this is a 3-year grant. On year 2 of the implementation, next year will be the last year of the funding, but Lindsay and the rest of the middle school feel pretty confident that they'll be able to continue this beyond the actual grant funding and carry what they've learned on for years to come.
Thank you, Secretary.
You're welcome.
For Facilities and Personnel, Mr. Kendall.
So all the parking lot lights at Telstar and the digital road sign is back up and running. That should be a long-term fix to that issue. Bus garage repairs are in the final stretches, just a couple windows left and hooking back the heat to the offices. The softball scoreboards are getting removed. That started today, the process, and we'll have new ones that are on solar powered. Still looking for a transportation director and discussing other avenues for the bus plans. And then we did have some issue over at Woodstock Elementary with the water that took the internet out for a few days, but that is fixed at the moment. Telstar Track, we are looking at a long-term replacement plan. It's coming up on its lifespan, and the company that put it in and been resurfacing it has recommended replacement in the next few years. And then also looking for quotes for the fields at Telstar and CPS and possibly Woodstock Elementary as well.
For Finance Committee, Meredith.
I was unable to attend the last meeting, but reading the minutes, there was discussion about the current finances and how they are in line with the budget. A lot of discussion about transportation and likely the need to have some additional support from that source, and Mark's working through that now. And then discussion on upcoming team meeting negotiations.
the policy committee. Mr. Bartlett?
Policy committee will be wanting to have action from the board regarding the second reading of the IKB homework policy, and also the second reading of the IKF graduation requirement policy.
David? And for the Region 9 board report?
Nothing to report this time.
All right, thank you. Next, I will turn it over to Mr. Kenny for the superintendent's report and correspondence.
Well, this is awesome. What a crowd. This never happens for board meetings. So, without further ado, I'm going to step aside because we have some special guests and visitors tonight to do a presentation for us. So I would like to welcome our kindergarten teachers from Crescent Park and their students to come forward and do a little show for us. Mrs. Arsenal, do you want to kick it off?
Yes, well, I really just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight, bringing your children to share this amazing performance. It will speak for itself in just the impact that these three ladies have on this group of kids, and you guys are going to see an amazing performance. Are you ready?
It's going to take 2 minutes. Promise.
If anybody wants to come over here, feel free.
We're just one small voice singing out. We're just one small voice singing sweet and strong. One by one they'll grow, and together sing along. And then soon all the world will be singing. We're not sure why that's doing.
I'm better at this.
You're where you're supposed to be.
That's right.
You want to try it first? We're going to try the music to see if that's
We're just one small voice.
All right. There we go.
Okay, turn your body flat and follow Mrs. Carroll. I can't retire, I still can get off the floor. Thank you. Thank you.
We have witnesses.
That's it. Your time is short.
I mean, I just assume so.
I got connections. Oh, seriously. So what's the over-under on how many people stick around
Bed tub.
I'm not gonna lie,
Supper
executive
bed
session, is that what we heard? Is that what we heard?
Well, that's a tough act to follow. And I will not be singing. You're all lucky there. That was special. Those guys have been practicing it for a while now. They've done their school assembly. It's a big deal for kindergartners to come before the board. So we're very appreciative of that. And that was quite a show. Getting back to business, I guess. Appointments. We have a high school alpine ski coach, William Corrigan. And in the middle school, we have head girls basketball coach, David Barry, and assistant girls basketball coach, Aaron Dupre. We also have two hiring appointments. Alyssa Savage is a new Ed Tech 2 in special ed at the middle school. And Brianna Adams is an Ed Tech 1, a half-time position in special ed at the Woodstock Elementary School. We had one transfer. Cynthia Kropp went from Crescent Park Special Ed Tech 3 to Crescent Park Pre-K Ed Tech 3. And one resignation, Joellen Carter, who was our special ed central office secretary, had to resign effective 11/21/2024. We have two agenda items later on tonight for new hires. Next we have PTA updates. Who would like to go first?
Well, you start with Telstar, instead of my own. It feels less pressure.
Thank you, Desmond.
Alright, Jamie was sorry that she couldn't be here tonight, so I will just read for you what she wrote. She said, "Good evening from the Telstar PTA. My apologies for not being able to be present this evening. The Telstar PTA has met 3 times this school year. We meet the first Tuesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. starting in September through May. Our current officers are Jamie Miller, President, Tanya Lewis, VP, Amy Marshall, Secretary, and Heather Kellogg is Acting Treasurer, in the absence of our Treasurer for the 2-year term. In accordance with the bylaws, a parliamentarian and a standing committee chair of the executive committee have been appointed and are Lindsay Lecce and Rebecca Coolidge, respectively. and all required documentation for the new year has been submitted to the Maine State PTA for compliance. At their October meeting, the new year's budget was presented, middle school and high school admin reports were given, opening of the Rebel store was discussed, and the decision was made to renew the commercial movie license for another year. At the October meeting, there was a budget vote that passed, admin reports were given, and there was discussion about their focus for this year and how they can best support the students, staff, and families at Telstar. They have also discussed a membership drive at one of the parent-teacher conference nights, which Heather Kellogg was able to do. She says thank you to Heather. At our November meeting, they had their procedural opening remarks followed by admin reports. As a unit, they agreed to partner with the Telstar High School sophomore class for after-school movie showings. The sophomore class will be operating concessions and will keep the profit for their class account. Additionally, the unit agreed to partner with a group of middle school students who will be traveling to Ecuador in their fundraising efforts. So they want you guys to know that on November 27th, this group is hosting a fun-filled activity day for SAD44 children in pre-K through 5 at the Telstar complex as a fundraiser. So bring your kids over and get a day of fun. The Telstar PTA is super excited to engage with students, staff, families, and their community to help every student reach their potential. If you have any questions, please reach out to Jamie.
Thank you.
Does CPS want to turn? And then I'll go
Oh,
back.
yeah. Mine is much less organized.
Same.
We met and are working on our candle fundraiser, which is always very, that's closed now, but always a very successful fundraiser. I think candles will be in the next few weeks and distributed, good, just in time for Christmas. We also reopened the school store to get some Christmas gear in. And then we're working on several different activity events and different things for the students and a couple different fundraisers. We'll be doing sleigh rides in the winter, right before winter break, for the students, and all kinds of fun activities for them. So that's all I have.
Yeah, Woodstock has met a few times. We have had some moving around of people, so I am still currently the president. Our VP is Liz Hatch, our secretary is Allison Harris, and our treasurer is Sonara Canatella. Our current focus right now is the Bake Cookies with Santa, the big community event that takes place at the school. The tree lighting will start at 5:30 on December 6th, so that's a Friday evening, where Santa will light the tree in Bryan Pond at the post office, and then the fire truck will then commute him to the school. It is a free community event open to all communities in SAD44, not just the Woodstock kids. And we, as a PTA, will have free refreshments, free cookie decorating, and a bunch of free crafts for all the kids to do. Along with Santa will be present for you to tell him what you want, and write him a letter if wanted. So we are super excited for that. As always, there will be a donation bucket if anyone does want to donate towards next year's event. But besides that, our ongoing fundraiser, as always, is the bottles at the Woodstock Bryan Pond dump. Unfortunately, we have had some theft occur recently. People have been sneaking into the bottle redemption shed and taking bottles, but we have been working with Oxford County to deal with that. So if any of you ever see anything suspicious, please report that and let us know. We're doing our best. Keep the money for the kids. So the town reported that the cameras usually just get taken too. So we are still in the process of deciding what to do about that. But in the meantime, we're still making good money, and it's still pretty much going to the kids. So we're not feeling a huge loss, but it is unfortunate that somebody would want to take from the children. So that's about it.
Thank you, ladies, appreciate it. An update from the last meeting. It was asked at the meeting about reunification and why the elementary schools don't go to Sunday River like Telstar Complex does. So I reached out to Sunday River Powers that Be and Darren Tripp, and we had a very quick turnaround in meeting. And I went up to Sunday River with the 3 elementary administrators. We had a great layout and plan, and Sunday River has agreed to take on the responsibility of reunification for all buildings in the district if that event ever needed to occur. They have the structures in place and the routines, and they have everything is there to go. So that will change our reunification plans going forward from now on, that anytime we have to leave and evacuate a building and reunify, all the schools will be going up to Sunday River and be well taken care of and received, and it'll be much smoother and less of disruption to the building where they were going to be received by. So we're very appreciative of that continued partnership and the quick response, and without hesitation, always getting a yes. It means a lot. The only other thing to report, and Destiny alluded to it a little bit, there is going to be the opportunity for an international trip for our middle school students with Mrs. Lecce and Mrs. Douglas coming up. It'll be outside the school year. It'll be in June, but they will have a chance to go to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands if they so choose. This is something that Mrs. Douglas used to live in Ecuador and has a lot of experience. And so she's excited to be able to bring some students with a tour company, and they will chaperone the kids to go down outside the school, and they are doing some fundraising. So if you see the fundraiser coming up and other advertisements around, that is what's going on, and they're going to be doing that outside of the school parameters. It's a private trip they're doing, but just something that to be aware and to know what's happening. So other than that, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you.
How many students? Is it
Uh,
area?
Sorry, what's
How many students are we planning on?
There are 13 signed up and 5 others who are interested, but waiting to see.
This will be a first time for middle school to have the opportunity to do something like this.
This is the current 6th and 7th graders?
Current 6th and 7th grade, yes.
Yeah, 2026.
We do not have any old business to tend to this evening. Move on to new business. Number 1, adjustments to the agenda. We need to enter into an executive session this evening to discuss a personnel matter. So I'd like to make a motion to add agenda item number 9, which would read to see what action the board wishes to take regarding entering into an executive session for a personnel matter requested by the superintendent, section 1 MRSA 4056A.
So moved.
Thank you, Scott.
Second that.
Thank you, Destiny. Any discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of adding agenda item number 9 as read to this evening's agenda? Thank you, it's unanimous. Moving on to number 2. To see what action the board wishes to take regarding the second reading of policy JEA compulsory attendance, and the policy committee will have a recommendation.
Yes, the policy committee recommends approval.
Thank you, David. We do not need a second where the policy committee has a recommendation. Is there any discussion? Scott?
Hi, I checked with my neighbors here before I brought this up. You know, the policy's fine, the amendments, it all is based on, it makes sense, there's no, but this is more of just a, you know, I try to put just the right amount of time in to be responsible, but I don't go look for trouble. I happen to be reading this thing, and this is the second, under the excusable absence part, it says there's a note, it references state law, alright? So I went and looked up Title 20A, Section 5162, it's been repealed. So I'm sure whatever the spirit of that piece of law is, it probably went somewhere else, I get that. But that's not what we got shipped. You know, Mark, I think this stuff comes out of Main School Management, right? These policy amendments?
To a degree, and then we have, the rest of it's local.
So that's, I guess it just seems like if we've gotta reject mediocrity. This is mediocre, it's not acceptable, doesn't mean it's the end of the world, vote with the motion, put it through. The other one here is actually in the same bracket, Title 28, Section 60021, Part B, that doesn't even exist. The numbering ends around 20,000, I think it's probably could have been a keystroke slip, I don't know, but doesn't matter, just put it through.
I will check.
Just to finish my comments, this came up last spring. I was trading email with Mike Meir, and you might have been on the cut. But anyway, there was a snag, and again the same thing. The statutory citation was not accurate. I happened to look it up. I was curious about underlying law, and it wasn't accurate. We got a kind of a little different category with the same area. We tabled a motion regarding last spring. We tabled a motion on the 5% transfer of the budget business cost centers, and we tabled it pending a legal opinion. We got a legal opinion. It was incomprehensible. It was not. It just didn't even. It was false. It was a false premise. So I'll leave it at that, but I guess I would just urge us all to reject mediocrity and, you know, set the example. This is, we're educators, so. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
For clarification, Scott, are you referring to the part of the policy that has the strike through that's being omitted?
It's a note, it says note,
Red, right here on the back
it
side.
says start instructional planning for students, et cetera.
Yes, that,
It's trivial in a way, but in a way it's not trivial at all.
It's not.
It's not trivial.
No, it's not.
gotcha, okay, thank you, thank you. I see what you're talking about now, thank you.
Thank you.
David?
I think Scott's got a good point. I'm glad we have him on the board because he looks at these things pretty closely. I would like to step back on this and not get this approved until we get this straightened out. He says it's been appealed, is that,
I'm sorry?
did you say it was?
No, it's I went to the website, the state website, and it's got it says repeal, 5162.
Right, so it's been repealed. We'll let it find out why it's been repealed. Where is it?
I have no doubt, if I jump in, I have no doubt it's some copy paste error or something, but it's,
But I think we ought to get it cleared up.
before it comes to SAD44, it ought to be struck, where we're paying to do this and all
Right.
that. So.
I mean, I would like to get this cleared up and to get this taken care of. I know it's gonna set us back in our policy readings, but I think it's important to get this right.
No, we want to make sure we do it appropriately. So am I correct in understanding that you want to take back your recommendation to approve?
As the chairman of the policy committee, I would like to step back on this and take a look at why has this been appealed and the reasons, and if it's been put in, inserted someplace else, or just what the deal is with it. I'll make that a motion if you wanna, or does it need to be a
I
motion?
don't know that we need a motion to table it until,
You can just withdraw your.
if you withdraw your motion, and then we'll continue to work on this, and we can
Okay.
propose a second reading when we're ready, when we've had
Fine,
more time
thank
to
you.
review. Thank you, David. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to number 3, to see what action the board wishes to take regarding the second reading of policy IKB homework, and the policy committee will have a recommendation.
Policy committee recommends approval on the action for the second reading of the policy IKB homework.
Thank you, David. We do not need a second. Do we have any discussion?
Spoke last time about it. Was there any additions to the grade level that we relook at this? I brought it up last time. I didn't see any changes to it. That this would only go to a certain grade, as it was discussed from the beginning. Didn't see anything new put in there.
I'm sorry?
Is this for all grades? Because from the beginning it was talked about up to 8th grade. And there's nothing new that's been put in there that says up to a grade level.
No, it hasn't been upgraded, I don't believe, has it?
No, it's applicable to the entire
It was
district.
left without grade
Yes,
level
yeah.
limitations.
Okay.
Any other comments, further discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approval of the second reading of policy IKB homework?
All those opposed?
All of those opposed?
Sorry, I was finishing.
Oh,
All
okay.
approved.
Okay, okay. It's unanimous,
done
thank
with
you. Number 4, to see what action the board wishes to take regarding the second reading of policy IKF graduation requirements. And the policy committee will have a recommendation.
Policy committee recommends approval on action taken on the second reading of the policy IKF graduation requirement.
Thank you, David. We do not need a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approval of the second reading of policy IKF graduation requirements? Thank you, it's unanimous. Number 5, to see what action the board wishes to take in approving the superintendent's recommendation for a new international trip and learning opportunity program for Telstar High School students and staff starting in 2025 and future years. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
you. Any discussion?
So the whole purpose of bringing this forward is that in the past, this trip, much like the middle school trip, has been done privately during school vacation. And Tara Ingraham has been the leader. She started going in 2017. They took 22 kids to Italy and Greece. In 2019, they did Switzerland, France, Italy, and Monaco, and Spain with 9 students. 2021 was postponed due to COVID. 2022, they went to Athens and the islands around with 17 students. 2023 was London and Paris with 16 students, and this April they are planning to take 27 students to Greece and Italy. This is done through a private travel company with educational purposes. But the reason I'm asking and bringing this to you is that they are changing this trip and opening it up to, and have created within the ELO program, the Extended Learning Opportunities Program, for kids to actually take a course and have this embedded into the trip where they can earn credit. There are social studies credits that they have created, and they have classes before, during, and after the trip for kids if they want to complete that component of it. They don't have to, it's optional. But for those who want to are going on this trip, and this year out of the 27, 9 have already signed up to do the coursework and get the extra credit to go with it. So because we have tied it into coursework and offerings we have at the school, I would just like to have your approval going forward that this is an additional offering we offer to the students. It does not cost the district anything. This is something the students pay for on their own, and they raise the money. That's why they go every other year, and it's primarily focused on juniors and seniors for international travel. They get assistance with getting their passport and everything taken care of, but because we have added this layer into the trip with district chaperones, the other piece that we're also changing is that when staff go, there's a chance for them to build research credits for the recertification by doing some work and presenting when they come back afterwards. So trying to build this into a more comprehensive activity, and not just, I mean, the travel is great and the exposure to travel is amazing for these kids, but the lifelong learning and the credit they can earn at the same time in high school is an additional layer. So that's why I asked to have this on the agenda, just to bring it forward with your approval as something we want to try and make as part of the fabric of the high school and offerings as kids go forward into the future.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
On the policy, what that we just approved, so that would go into the social studies and history credit,
It
is
would.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
How long before and after do they study this piece?
So they've got a number of, it's a few weeks, it will be like a half a credit.
Okay.
It's not gonna be a full credit, but they're gonna have social studies standards that have come out of the curriculum that they can earn. So it goes under electives, social electives, but just one more thing to give it a little more credibility as they're going with this travel. They've got, I think she's got it set up for 3 weeks prior the trip and then 3 weeks after they return to produce their final product, which shows their learning and assesses the standards that they have to accomplish.
And is this privately funded by the kids, or is this fundraising? Like, do the families have to pay for it?
They do.
And then, is there grants that are given to children that might not be able to afford it?
There are some opportunities, some students have gone to Project Opportunity and asked for some assistance. They do some fundraising, but that's why they have incremental payments over the 2 years to try and lead up to it.
Is there any issue that this would cause where people might not be able to afford to go and they're not allowed to enter into this kind of program where it's now school tied? Where we're not opening it up to everybody that can go with public school?
Potentially.
Okay.
It's a pilot. We're
No,
trying.
I get it. I love the idea, but
yeah.
just like if everybody can't go, have the opportunity, can it be tied into school?
Well, with the middle school trip, my daughter was involved in, to Florida. It was
The science trip.
the science trip, yeah. You had a year we did snack shacks at the soccer games, and there was all kinds of fundraising opportunities that, were provided. We had to find them, but, which I think raised a good chunk for the kids. So, I mean, families did have to kick in, but there's definitely opportunities during the year to fundraise.
And it seemed like most of the kids that wanted to go were able to
Right.
through those efforts, despite financial situation and.
What was that tied to, like a credit though? That's my worry, is
not.
like,
Middle
It was
school.
if it's not
It was
tied to
middle school,
school,
not-
this would be tied to school, and it's not guaranteed for everybody to enter is my worry.
It's an option within the trip. The kids can go on the trip and not do the class
Yeah.
portion of it.
Yeah.
it's just a chance for another layer to be added in.
Well, it's not a required,
Nope, it's
Right.
completely optional.
right, so it,
It's completely optional.
So it's pay to play,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a good idea. I guess I kind of, you know, it's almost refreshing to not have it equity-based. There is some, you know, why we got people willing to go help out and getting teachers and all that. I think it's a good thing, and the more it goes, better, so.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation for a new international trip and learning opportunity program for Telstar High School students starting in 2025? It's unanimous, thank you. Number 6, to see what action the board wishes to take in approving the superintendent's recommendation of Mackenzie Connor to a first-year probationary teacher in 7th grade science at Telstar Middle School for the remainder of the 2024-2025 school year, and facilities and personnel will have a recommendation. Recommendation? That's you.
That's me, sorry. I was waiting for my papers.
You're good.
We recommend approval.
Thank you. We do not need a second. I'm opening up for discussion and take your time with the packets that are coming around.
So last year, Mackenzie did her student teaching with Elka Bloss in the high school in the biology department. She recently graduated from UMaine Orono. She's working on just finishing up her master's degree as well. She was hired at the beginning of this year to be an ed tech in the middle school. When our 7th grade science teacher out on maternity leave chose not to come back, the position reopened, and Max stepped up and applied, interviewed, and is perfect for the job. It really fits her personality, her styles. It's a background she wanted, life science and biology. The 7th grade curriculum fits that to a T. She's already diving in and working with the kids, getting to know the kids, into, you know, trying to make as much of a seamless transition as possible. We were very, very fortunate to have Mr. Elliott in as a long-term sub to start the year, after he did last year, long-term sub for us in 8th grade math. This year he started the year being a 7th grade science teacher. Again, was all in. The kids did some great learning opportunities. We were very, very fortunate. But to get a certified teacher who wants to be here and wants to stay long-term is a gift during the school year. Doesn't happen often. So I feel very fortunate that this is an opportunity for us and very encouraging. So she comes with, even though a short experience resume, a lot of experience in life science, outdoor education, and education in general.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions or discussion at all on the recommendation? So all of those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation of Mackenzie Connor to a first-year probationary contract for the 2024-2025 school year? Thank you, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Number 7, to see what action the board wishes to take in approving the superintendent's recommendation of Shauna Chase to a first-year probationary contract as LCSW at the Woodstock Elementary School, part-time 2 days a week for the remainder of the 2024-2025 school year. And facilities and personnel will have recommendation.
Recommend approval.
Thank you. We do not need a second. I'll open it up for discussion, and there are packets coming around with information as well.
To say we got lucky this month would be an understatement. The Woodstock School has not had a social worker since school started, which has been a huge challenge for the staff and students there, and regular and special ed departments as well. And we've come close a couple times, but haven't been able to fill it. And so, lo and behold, Shauna comes along, sees the posting again, and throws her hat in the ring. Mrs. Clark was able to interview her. Shauna is a Telstar graduate, a SAD44 alumni, has worked in the field in many different capacities over the years, and is truly excited. This is a 2/5 position, so the equivalent of 2 days a week. They are going to work on being flexible with schedule. But she was working with a private company and was housed, working primarily at Mount Valley Middle School. But since they've been remote, her client list has been cut back significantly, so she was able to make room and wanted to fill her schedule and provide her services here in the district, which is the home district she went to school in. So she is extremely excited, almost giddy. I don't know if Beth's more excited or not, but
I'm giddy.
this is a huge hole for us to have filled. It's going to be great for the Woodstock School and great for Shauna as well. So we're looking forward to it, and they have plans to start, if you approve tonight, they have plans to start next week, and she's ready to be all in. So it's long overdue, so we're very fortunate. Scott?
So, licensed clinical social worker.
Correct.
Could you give me, I'll vote for the motion. But I want to just clarify, I understand. What does this employee do, or how does that individual interact with, what leads the employee interacting with the student? Or does everybody see the person, or is it sort of a referral thing with the principal, or? What do they do?
It's a combination. So this person will work with students in special ed who have it in their IP to have social work services, or that could be individual or small group for social skills. They are there to work with all students on a referral basis, either from parents, staff, students can self-refer, and it's a chance to connect and to have social emotional connections. It also is a chance for they can help connect and be the liaison for staff and for families if they need outside resources for support and networking outside. It's just a level of counseling. They used to call them guidance counselors. Guidance counselor is a position, but social worker is much more in tune with what the needs of the student body and the schools require these days.
So it's a 2-day-a-week budgeted.
That's what's budgeted for currently, yes.
And that might be 4 different days with a couple hours.
4 half days. It's equivalent of up to what would be 14 school hours.
What the student count down is the 50s, you said?
66.
66, I knew it was a double number. Okay. What percent or what number of that 66 would likely to see the social worker in the course of a year? Because I don't know, I mean, just kind of, is like a 20% or?
In a school year, I bet she will meet with every single kid at least once at a minimum, and other kids regularly more often. Some will set up regular weekly sessions.
Some kids need attention more than other kids.
They need support, yep, and the staff needs another entity to come in and help provide that support, so it's not just them.
So having an IEP is not necessarily a requirement to see
Definitely not.
this individual?
Nope.
Okay. I'm all set, thank you.
No classroom at all, no classrooms, no Scott can avoid to present anything in the classroom.
Not at this time, not yet. They'll wait and see and assess. Right now, they just need more of the small group and individual counseling. So with 2 days a week, or the equivalent of 2 days a week, it's been a whole, since last spring, so they've had anybody. So just trying to figure out how they want to proceed and meet the needs the best.
It's a very needed position.
The reverse is true though, right? Like, aren't there's students with IEPs that are, in theory, to serve them, we need to have a social worker, correct?
We have their services, yes.
Like,
So-
this is a position, it's not like we're like, oh, let's just, like,
No,
this
it's-
is a requirement to
We have to fulfill,
meet the
we
needs
have
of the
not
students we
been
have.
completely covering all the IP needs we were supposed to be. And that's just one aspect of this job and pieces, but yes.
This is about the position. Do we have the appropriate, room and support for the person when they get there? Is there a space set up for them?
Physical space.
There is?
And Shauna's gonna be meeting with Jenny Smith, and Kristen Powell as well.
Just want to make sure she has what she needs when she gets there.
Yep, we're on that.
Thank you.
The position was contracted previously with Oxford County Mental Health, and we had a clinician in for the last 2 years previous. That person took another job, and so we've been trying to fill it since.
What is the corresponding number for Crescent Park, that this is 2 days a week equivalent? Is there a full-time person at Crescent Park?
We have one full-time
One.
person at Crescent Park.
is that kind of a job that exists also in the middle school or the high school?
Yes. Yeah. We are very fortunate that the board supported having those positions in. Not all districts do, but it's needed, and they are not bored.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving superintendent's recommendation of Sean Chase for LCSW at Woodstock Elementary? It's unanimous, thank you. And if you haven't already, could you make sure those packets come back up to the front? No, we didn't, we had a recommendation, so the reason we didn't in a second because of that, yes, yep. Number 8, to see what action the board wishes to take in regards to entering into a board workshop session to discuss policy JICJ, student cell phones. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion on entering into the workshop? Seeing none, all those in favor of entering into a board workshop? Thank you, it's unanimous. Before we begin, just a few things I'd like to note. The workshop will be less formal than our regular board meetings, but I will continue to facilitate. This is just to ensure that everyone that would like to contribute has the chance to, and to keep us on topic. I will ask that all comments are appropriate, respectful, and pertinent. The purpose of this board workshop is to discuss student cell phones and gain a better understanding of their role and impact within our schools before making any change to the district's policy. No formal action or decision-making will take place during this workshop. There are copies of the district's current policy if you don't have one already on the table up front, and it is also posted on the district's website. And since the board has business to tend to, oh, no, that's after, sorry. Thought I missed something, sorry. Since the board has business to attend to after the workshop, I may limit this workshop to an hour. Up to. Exactly.
Was there a copy of the thing?
No, I
Oh, you
I had
have
them.
it, okay.
I had them.
My bad.
Okay.
They're on this table.
Pass one down. I was like, oh.
Thank you.
Is there anyone that wants to get started?
I'll start.
Thank you, Dustin.
I personally think that cell phone use should be separated out by grade level, as in elementary, middle, and high, all operating under different policies. I think that as a society, we need to be really careful with cell phones and children. And I think that children of all ages have different needs for them and different appropriate uses for them. And I would really encourage all of us to consider that when we create the policy going forward. That's just what I'd like to say.
Go right ahead.
It almost seems appropriate to, I mean, it feels right to me to have kind of a graduated, if we, think about the high school and move backward. High school kids, they get the plot a little easier, a little more maturity there. I know at the TFA program, they are encouraged to use cell phones and stuff for their outdoor leaderships and such, so if we move backward from there, I feel like currently the middle school has a policy where the kids can bring them, but they have to stay in their lockers all day. And then elementary school, I don't see any. since we have an office with a phone. I think those kids, that's where the habits start. So to have it sort of be something that's earned as they mature and develop, makes sense to me.
Mark, do you have any sense of the percent of students need, by grade or by rough grouping, what percent bring a smartphone to school? Is it 100% for high school kids? Do they all have a phone or a smartwatch or some kind of device?
I would say it's 100, so probably the 90s.
And then you drop down in middle school or the grade or the elementary schools?
Yeah.
Same, or is it drop down, or?
It dropped a little bit in the middle school, probably in the 80s, 70s,
Yeah, I mean,
80s.
we're seeing actually a significant decrease because parents are becoming a little bit more concerned about giving them earlier. So I would say that there's a high percentage of sixth graders who do not have one. And then as you get
Which is a shift.
it is
In elementary, it's not much.
I mean, I'm glad we're talking about this, and I really don't know what to think. But if somebody else wants to jump in, I'll have something to say, you know me, but.
Sure. I'll share it. So what you see in front of the policy I handed out, this is the policy that the committee has started with. We have not gone all the way through to a final edit. These are just notes. The red lines came out of notes from admin team meeting and from the first meeting with policy committee. This is just a draft of changes and updates to go with the current policy that you see in red. The other sheet I handed out, the packet, the first packet, just shows you feedback from the 2 elementary principals. It gives you the data from the first trimester in the middle school of cell phone violations and infractions. And then the handbook, copy of the handbook for middle school and high school, just so you can see what the current handbook states. And that's also what was partly put into the new version of the policy. And then the second packet that's stapled is from the high school, Mr. Elliott, about cell phones and staff meeting feedback. So I just wanted to bring that forward, because I know people were asking, want to make sure that admin had a chance to talk about this, that there was teacher input and feedback. What hasn't happened yet, and may possibly be a result from this, it has not necessarily gone to the student body for feedback yet. I'm not saying it isn't, but just we have not gotten that far into the process. Figure it's easier to bring it to the workshop and see how much more or what direction you want to go in after the discussion this evening as to what you want in addition to what's already provided so far. If that's helpful at all.
The policy suggestions, the 4th incident, I think you might run into some problems with keeping the cell phone until Saturday detention is served for its personal property.
Where's the
Maybe not.
calendar?
Huh?
Where?
On the 4th incident. I would hope that most parents would be understanding. However, there might be ones that disagree with that, and it is personal property, so that might be difficult to uphold.
I think it means like if you were to keep bringing it back, not like it would be kept overnight.
It says daily until this.
Daily as only, not night, like overnight. It means like if you were to bring it the next day, it would continue to have to be brought to the office and dropped off.
The wording is a little.
Okay.
Yes, but that was the intention.
Got
Just
it.
so you
Yeah,
know.
'cause
It
I
makes
read
way
Trying
more
to keep
sense.
that
Don't worry,
organized.
the same way
They
you
lose
do
it
it.
on Monday, don't get it till Saturday.
Nobody was trying to steal those.
Okay. No, for those, that's important just to,
Yeah.
as reading through it, that we want to make sure it's as clear as possible for as little misinterpretation as we can.
The wording on the first incident is a little confusing to me. If it was seen or being used,
Yeah. Yeah, if they see it. So even if it's sitting on your desk,
so
it's gonna
it
come
can't be
as an
seen at
incident.
all. So
Correct.
being used doesn't even need to be on there, right? It's
technically.
seen,
Well, you can use it without it being seen nowadays.
but if you can't, out of sight, out of mind, or if they can't see it, they don't know about it. So I don't know.
Okay.
Well, so can I just, we may get a phone call or a text from a parent saying, my child is texting me from the bathroom. Go get their phone, please.
Understood.
From the parent.
That's a good.
Yes, it is a good parent.
the
those
bathroom an
partners.
okay place for them to be using their phone?
No.
It says no pictures, it doesn't say no text messages. Don't laugh at my question.
They're fair questions.
To clarify, we currently, they're supposed to lock their phone in their locker. Is that correct?
Put it in.
That's in middle school.
In the middle school, it's supposed to leave
Just
their
the
phone in the
middle
locker. Yes, that's just a middle school rule.
And then what's the high school, isn't this the high school one though? Students are asked to leave their phones in their locker.
Live up to the duties to leave.
Says from the student handbook. at the top.
I don't know, these they're very similar, but
They are very
I think
similar.
one is, I think the
It's really-
Arial font one is the high school. The Georgia font is the middle school.
Do that?
Good definitions.
There you go.
So Sarah, I don't know where you. What is the high, is that not the, what's the expectation at the high school right now? And is it across all the teachers?
Right now, it's based on teacher permission in the classroom. It does relax a little bit. John, do you want to speak specifically to your children?
Yeah, I could read it right off the paper there, it's written right out there.
Which paper?
I think the question is.
We have too many
which-
papers as our
Oh.
problem.
Yeah.
So right now, they ask the students not to use them without teacher
Oh,
permission.
it's the
They're
back.
they're supposed to be away.
This one.
High school's allowed to use them at breakfast, at
Yeah.
lunch, and with teacher permission, and they're allowed to use them this year in the hallways and passing. So between classes and passing time, which is a 3-minute window, when they're passing through classes, they're allowed to check their phones. And a lot of teachers now in the high school have started to ask the kids to either collect them or put them on the desk, or they have little slots or cubbies or the old calculator pockets on the door to kind of tuck them into, and they all have an assigned slot, and then get them at the end of class. I know last year there were a couple teachers, and I know there was one teacher in particular in JMG class, Cheyenne, had the kids keep a tally mark on the board. Every time they got a notification, they had to walk up and put a tally beside their name. And for the kids to actually see the number of times they were getting buzzed or notified during class as a distraction, it was really actually, not to be fun, but it was very eye-opening. They don't realize how often it's going on. And so it is not a mandate, as it is in the middle school, that phones are away and not used. It graduates up to high school, and there's some gradual release where it's appropriate with teacher permission. With that also comes a teacher can ask the student to put it away if they're misusing it or using it at inappropriate times. And if they refuse to do so, then it gets referred to the office for a disciplinary measure.
Okay, so to devil's advocate, what's the, why? Like, what's the benefit to having a looser policy at the high school level? Like, if they're not using them in class and it's a distraction, what's the reasoning that it becomes more lax?
Part of the discussions in the past is gradual release and trying to train the kids to use them appropriately because they exist, and that there has to be a way adults use them and try to find the appropriate use and not use and the restrictions on that. Some teachers do use them in the classroom. Some teachers have the kids use them as their calculator. They use them for pictures. They use them for other things that they're doing. Some kids prefer when they're mobile. They are much more likely to use their phone than drag their laptop around, so as they go outside. So there are ways that they are embedded into the activities, but that's something that's up to the individual teacher at the high school level. Middle school teachers, they don't make that an option. They don't incorporate it into their lessons and how they're learning. It's trying to find that balance of how much do you restrict and how much do you teach appropriate use going forward so that they can be learning the right ways. Scott?
Go to Mark.
Okay.
Well, I'm just confused. The handbook says they're allowed to be used, and the policy says they're not.
That's over here.
So that's why we're here.
This is kind of like the graduation policy we went through, where they were practice did not match policy, and we need to make sure they are in alignment.
Have any teachers started with a classroom policy and then adapted something else? And I'd love to hear feedback from them since they're dealing with it. We're just hypothetical here. What's worked, what hasn't worked? That would be great to hear that.
So, I guess maybe I could have read what I wrote, that 2-page, because I thought a lot of your questions, I think a lot of the answers are in that 2-page thing I wrote.
You just got it, didn't it?
I mean, if you'd like me to read it out loud, I can, but, I mean, I met with our teachers, and the rules at the high school is like, we believe in that we're educators. It's our job to teach these kids how to use technology appropriately. If we don't do this at the high school level, when they graduate, they're gonna come to your place in employment, they're gonna have their cell phones out at inappropriate times, they're gonna lose their jobs, stuff like that. That's the worst case scenario, of course, but we need to teach them, it's our job how to teach technology. If we don't, who is, right? So we, at our school, at the high school, we do have a rule where you can use the phone outside of class. We purposely made it so you do it during passing time because we understand that your phone is an addiction. And that if you don't do that, you are distracted by it. I can't solve every addiction in the world, but I can help you along to curb it and help you, get off of that. So by doing that, so you are able to check your stuff and you come to class and you're more focused. When you come into class, if you even have that if the notifications are bothering you too, you have the option of putting the thing in your caddy. Some classes it's mandatory. That's where the teacher's discretion comes into place in their classroom. On that piece of paper, you can see there's a whole list of direct quotes from my teachers of why they feel that the cell phones are needed by high school levels and not at the elementary level. I just returned from the MPA conference where 75 principals were there, and they vastly agreed that a tiered approach is the way to do it. They seemed a bit confused at the high school level of where that strictness is supposed to be. They're very hesitant, I'm saying in the group, to go with a complete strict ban. There were a couple of schools that have completely banned them at the high school level, but other schools quickly came back to counter, and there was a big debate about it. When I explained to them how we address cell phones and that we don't have an issue at a high school because we're doing what I believe is the appropriate thing in teaching our kids how to do it, and the kids are responding appropriately, they said, then go for it, because that's working for you. It may be more difficult at a larger school to have a similar policy as what we have here, but given the number of kids we have, it's working. And that's the response I get from the staff. The students, on the other hand, are much, much happier. They have more flexibility so that they do go into class and they understand that class time is class time. We're here to work. We're here for a purpose, whether it's science, English, or math. We're not here to check our social media stuff because nobody cares about that right now. But in between class, when you're walking from here to there, I don't care if you check your social media and you have to say, send a quick text. As long as you get to class on time and that phone's put away and then you're focused on the class because that's your job and that's your task. And that's what we need to teach the kids at high school. That lesson's not appropriate at the elementary school. That lesson's not appropriate at the middle school. It is appropriate at high school. And I believe that the entire student body and my staff would agree with me. So I feel confident speaking for them. That's my thought.
I would
If
just,
you have any questions, no problem.
my only question is, does the, teacher discretion part seem to be working? Like, is it working at the high school that each classroom has a different thing? Is that causing animosity between teachers, or is it a non-issue?
No, it doesn't seem to be an issue because it's not really that different. Everybody does have the caddy there, and in some rooms, yes, I want you, the teacher says, I want them in the caddy because of this is the reason, fine. And the other teacher says, hey, if you need it, use the caddy, go ahead. It seems to be working, and allowing the teachers have that discretion, and it seems, that's always, it's their classroom, and give them that little flexibility, it just seems to be working fine.
So the kids that
and
go
like I said, in there you can see too, at the office, I've had 0 phone referrals, and I asked Mrs. Moore, and she thinks she had 2, maybe, all year. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the teachers and the students are managing the technology appropriately because they're not getting to the disciplinary level, right?
So the kids, if Mrs. Smith has a block, or makes all the kids put the phone in the caddy, the kids aren't showing up to her class and giving her an issue because they say, well, Mr. Jones says that I don't have to put it in the caddy, but you're making, that's a non-issue.
No, because if it was, that's something that would be brought to Mrs. Moore or my attention, and like I said, there was a non-existent.
I'm not sure I agree with Mr. Elliott about the obligation to teach technology. I guess it sounds like we're not obligated to teach kids how to use smartphones. But what do we, I guess that's superintendent, what do we give the high school kids now for technology? They get laptops?
Everyone has a laptop.
And that's from grade 12 down,
Grades 3 through 12 have laptops.
their own
K through 2
individual
have
assigned
iPads.
for the year. So I guess that's their, I guess I kind of separate the idea of smartphones from the laptops, I also, you know, just from a very basic view of the whole thing, you got the kids 7 hours. The other 17 hours a day they're not in the custody of the school system. But when they're here, where the law requires their attendance, the law requires that people pay taxes to support it. Teachers are required to be certified by law, the administrators, a lot of rules in place. And the social goal is to prepare the kids for their, you know, what's ready for you after you're, 18. I guess I get it. If we're gonna have a policy, makes sense. If it's gonna be allowed. The only thing I'd say is, why would we ever introduce anything into that 7-hour experience? Why would we ever introduce anything that could be a potential disruption or distraction? I guess it just seems like there's nothing to be gained by having the kids have smartphones. On the other hand, they're amazing tools. I love my phone. It's really, I feel very lucky that I've got, at this age, I got some preview of life before the invasion. I don't know, I guess we send the kids down to Bryant Pond, now the academy is more of a bonding thing, and more collegiality and all that. So how are kids, before whatever the number of minutes are between classes, they're playing around on their phones in the hallway, maybe they'll be interacting with each other. These are all questions. I don't know. I don't want to debate, but I just kind of, I guess I'm waiting there. Tell me why, everyone's involved. Taxpayers, the parents, the teachers, everybody's in the game here. The authority comes from the state to do all this. We're obligated to. And I guess I just don't know why we would introduce something in the same way as the hats. Why would we have something that would kind of create a little bit of disruption? We're undermining our $15.5 million we're asking the public to provide to create the experience. So I'm not against it in a way, but I guess these are rhetorical questions that I'd like to just keep going. I'll try to be quiet. Thank you.
I've always been kind of on the side of, if we're providing our students with technology, that we have some obligation to teach them to use it appropriately as we go. And people can check their social media on laptops. I mean, it's not just a phone thing. So, I think even beyond the school district, I think it's a societal obligation to start working it into education.
Well,
it's
just
really important.
I can respond to, the other 17 hours a day, the kid can play on his phone all day long, all night, in his bed, whatever, we all do, but I guess we're asking everybody to be involved. The kids gotta be here by law, everybody's got, the laws, why would we bring something into the environment that can only go downhill? That's all I'm gonna say.
I think it does tie back to the hat stuff, because I think it's, what we learned from all of the hat stuff was that the trying to not wear the hats was more of a distraction than just allowing the hats and moving on with your day is what we learned from the administrators. So I think it's kind of the same thing with the cell phones. If you try to ban the cell phones, the act of trying to ban the cell phones is more of a distraction than the act of having the cell phones in the classroom and teaching the kids how to use them appropriately and at the appropriate time. That's what I've gathered from all of this.
I guess I just quickly, Mr. Elliott mentioned at the principal's conference, some of the schools had gone to an outright ban. You read the national newspapers, Washington Post, things like that, about different high schools that just sort of cut through the morass and said, no, we're here to educate, we're not here to, do that after school. I guess, like, maybe we could hear a little more next meeting or something about the experience of schools that have had the ban. You know, it's, you know,
John?
The couple schools that I did hear from actually had cell phone problems and issues with them, like similar situations where students were refusing to follow the rules. A lot of office referrals for consequences. We don't have that here. And also, just to let you know, our student body, it's not like our kids are walking around the hallways on their phones all the time, because that sounds funny, because that's not what's happening at all. They are, actually at lunchtime, every single guy, for sure, is in the gym playing basketball, and there's not one cell phone out for 30 minutes. Most of the girls are talking too, and some of them are in playing basketball. There's probably less than a dozen cell phones out at lunchtime, and I'm there every single day for 30 minutes. And that's when you would think that they would be on their cell phone if they were really gonna be on there for a long period of time, right? And when you do go by somebody who's on their cell phone with others, they're interacting in a conversation, they're talking about the video they're watching or whatnot. And it's actually kind of interesting conversation. So, catch-22, I guess.
The only thing I would say, I'm actually not opposed to letting them have it during their free time. The parents have already given them permission, they have a cell phone, so that's a parent judgment call. I think in the classrooms, I think it would just be nice to have a uniformed depository for teachers to have the option, if they want to. You're allowed to have it in this class, I'm letting you, or today we're not having cell phones. This is where it is. I think it should be uniformed, that they have a way to take them away during
Storage
class. And then in between class or free time, then allow it. And I think, as much as you say middle school and high school is different, I have an 8-year-old that acts like she's 17, so.
I got one of those
Yeah,
too.
so I don't think middle school and high school is too far off. Again, if the parents have allowed a cell phone, I think they're in the same building. I know they're separated, but they are in the same building. I don't think it's too far off nowadays, to be honest, between middle and high school. I do think elementary school, that we should hold strong on.
Can I ask how many, like, I hate to use the word bullying, because I know that it's not considered a bullying incident until it's gone so high, but how many behavioral incidences between children in middle school have had a complaint of cell phones being somewhat involved in it? Do we have like a rough estimate of that? Do we find it to be that cell phones are causing more than half?
More than half STEM.
And most of those is outside of school hours.
And it's
Right.
outside of school hours.
It's not during school, it's outside of school hours.
This happened
That's the
at 3 a.m. over April break, but now it's gonna impact school when they return from vacation.
Okay. So do you think that that's something that could be helped to, take away some of that by also banning cell phones at a middle school level? Or do you think that that would just be not really make much of a difference?
It's not happening,
It's not during the day.
it's not during the school day.
I would rebut that. Would it be better if it happened during the school day where rumor mill's quick, gets around fast, and it could be addressed in school? Might actually be beneficial if something like that happened, or it can be addressed.
Potentially. I mean, our scope is, like you said, we have 7 hours a day.
Right.
Yet we have to police the outside of school hours, because if it affects coming back into school, it never turns off.
Right.
And that's become the bigger challenge, and what's ended up on school's doorsteps that didn't used to exist. When kids pass notes in class, it was in a moment. They wrote on a book, they wrote on a desk, they passed a note. They thought twice of it. You couldn't, and you also couldn't just post it and walk away from it and not see somebody face to face and look them in the eye. And that has changed how, the negative side of how they interact and communicate with each other. And so that is probably the bigger interaction that is faced, is it's much easier to post something, and it's even easier on Snapchat because it's going to disappear. It's just in the moment, it's a fleeting moment, that they are more brave to do things in a negative format because the technology allows it than they used to be. That's just the reality of what we're dealing with in schools and the discipline
It's in
that.
life in general.
Yeah, they see the examples in the adults around them. It's all around them. And the bigger issue is, so a lot of our kids, as John said, there are addictions. technology and the phone is an addiction, and they don't know how to put it away sometimes. They don't have to go to bed. They take their technology to the rooms with them at night, and they can't turn it off.
So,
And
do we let them smoke cigarettes on their break because it helps them because of their addiction?
we do not.
Just that. It might make them feel better.
You gotta ask the question, so, you know it's in your pocket, you know it's in your backpack, during that 7-hour period, how is it not pulling your attention away from whatever else you could be doing during? That the kids are required to be there to do their part, meet the law. I guess I don't know, I mean, how is it better for the educational experience to know you've got stuff in there, you wanna look at it, you see it, you know, you can't wait till get the break, get to the, I don't know, and then why just have a smooth ride for 7 hours?
Well, you keep referencing the law. The law is the classroom, which is, I don't think anybody's arguing.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
it's
the
just-
in-between is not part of the law.
Well, it is.
I
It's
mean,
7
the
hours.
education
It's 7 hours. There's a secure area.
Yeah.
It's a locked building. It's a lot of things. It's 7 hours of
So you
education.
don't think 4 minutes of catching up quick in between classes is better than 7 hours of what is happening?
I think that the kids are they're not full adults. All right. It's the reason I don't vote till you're 18. All that stuff. So everyone else is doing their part. The taxpayers, the teachers, whoever else is. How does it enhance the educational experience to have that thing, you know you wanna look at it, you don't wanna look at it lunchtime?
Technology changed, Scott. So we're not using abacus anymore. Like, things adapt, we change.
Just wondering, I don't know.
I think the goal is, if you can take those urges away by having those, that they will focus in class, and it takes a training, it's a process. To make these changes, it's a process, it doesn't just happen overnight. And it doesn't work for everybody. But we're hearing from employers the same struggles they have in the workplace. And there are kids going out there, and they don't know how to put their phone away, they don't know how to stay off it and actually focus on the job. And so, if we don't start trying to do those.
Maybe it's best to put them on moratorium,
But-
7 hours.
but
You
employers
belong
don't-
to school, you belong to the taxpayers for 35 hours a week. You're the custodians, you're all.
I mean, I'm an employer and you don't have your phone out. So, I mean, I think, like, to me, a policy, like, the people who have to enforce it, I think our job as the board is to listen to them and, like, our policy should reflect that. So, like, you know, like, to me personally, I'm like, I don't see why we have them out. But if the people, the teachers and the principal are feeling like this is the way that they're the ones ultimately who have to enforce it and this is the plan they like, then, like, to me, then I would want the policy to reflect that, even if I actually kind of agree that, like, to me, I think that we're introducing the distraction, right? Like, we're going from middle school not having them to allowing them, where it's not like we're helping them fight the distraction, we're like allowing them to do it, but as long as the goal is to, you know, I guess it sounds like there is a reason and a plan of, like, when they should use it and when they shouldn't, and, you know, as long as the teachers and the administrators are on board with that plan, that makes sense to me, even if, like, I actually would prefer.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, like, for me, like, having a kid in high school, I feel like my kid's little now, but I would imagine I wouldn't even just, like, want that distraction being introduced to them, but, you know.
And then it's parental choice, take it away.
I'll just share too, I mean, ultimately, parents are the ones who are deciding
Yeah.
if their kids have phones.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, as a parent, my children do not have phones. It's not an issue in the middle school because they don't have one.
Yeah.
A high school parent could decide the same. And you can purchase something for communicating that is not a smartphone. That is a real reason, and I do understand that, why families are introducing phones for their kids. I mean, gone are the days of keeping quarters in my backpack and using the payphone to call for a ride.
How much do the schools interact with the parents in regards to technology in terms of, like, preventative or
A lot.
like
A lot.
expectations and?
Yes. Yep, and we face parents who are angry and insist my child will have their phone on them whenever they want, and I will get a hold of them on that phone whenever I want to. And we have to combat that and try to please, like, we have a phone, like, we have secretaries, we get messages to them. But that part is a real struggle.
PTA has tried to help support that as well
Yep.
over the years of trying to get the message out and trying to get the understanding as to why, the purpose behind the requests and why they're doing it, and it can only provide so
Yeah,
much
I mean,
information.
like, we're not the ones that are
Right.
gonna be enforcing the policy, like,
Right.
it's the parents and the teachers and the administrators, so.
Right.
Speaking to that though, from a parent side, as much as I did not want to get my son a cell phone, and by 6th grade year, I was struggling communicating with sports and having them communicate when he was gonna be back here. And so, I do think there is something to say to, I mean, obviously some parents, there are the extreme that, we don't need to, have our kid texting us in the bathroom. But I can say that if parents are having, if we decide to bring this and we find that a lot of parents all of a sudden show up and, they start fighting us on whatever we decide, I think as a board, we do need to step back and realize that that's coming from a place of fear. And that as parents, being afraid of not knowing that your child is safe and secure, because a lot of schools are having situations that aren't safe and secure in today's world, that is coming from fear. So I think I agree with like the education side of making sure that they understand that teachers are also being held accountable in situations. You say that we can contact you and that it's easy and that there's a phone in the office, but if there are parents that are having, an issue with that, such as I was 6th grade year, yes, we got it worked out, but in the long run, I felt like he needed to have a cell phone because I was worried of him getting stuck, behind the school without me. What if, somebody missed him? Worst case scenario, probably not. Do I trust all of his teachers? Yes, but it comes from a place of fear, right? That worst case scenario. So I think if we have a lot of pushback on this, we do need to consider that more education and more securing them in their fear. Maybe it's looking at other policies besides just cell phones. Maybe it's our safety procedures. Are parents feeling like their kids need their cell phone in their pocket because they're not comfortable with our safety procedures? Are they worried that if there is a worst case scenario, a shooter incident, that their child does need to reach them because they're worried somebody isn't going to do their part? So I think it's educating parents on more than just cell phone use, but also that fear of why do they feel like their kid needs to be in contact with them 24/7, if that makes sense. I think there's more to it than just them being on social media. I think there's communication is a big thing to look at, more so than just distraction.
So, just to be clear, there are two separate issues. What's going on social media, like you said, that's a round-the-clock thing, and you get the baggage 7 hours a day. But we're talking about just the possession or having the option of getting to your smartphone off and on throughout the 7-hour period. It's two separate things, so.
I just feel
My
like.
heart goes out to the
Yeah,
the teachers, they gotta get the whole social, it does create it's turmoil, the whole society is in turmoil, so. But we're not here to solve that, we're just here to.
Right, and so
talk
I
about
just
how
think there's
best
more to it. I think
Yeah,
there's more
oh,
to it
yeah.
than just the distraction part. I
Yeah.
think that we need to consider that,
Mhm.
parents want to be in contact with their kids because they love them.
My parents.
Right, but by law, you hand over custody to somebody
And
else.
I get that, and
That's the
so
way it is.
then it's
That's
just
the way the
making
world is.
sure that, there's just enough, we can't just go with an upright ban of cell phones against all the schools without expecting some pushback due to fear, is what I guess I'm saying.
And I would just offer, if our mission is education, and there's an undermining effect, these devices, having them in possession or in access during the 7 hour, during the school day, where, we're undermining education for a more happy experience during the day. And maybe that's the way it is, but I guess I define it that way. If education's a goal, let's educate.
So
let's get it done.
Are you saying you don't want them on the property?
Have said there's an undermining effect.
Well, I don't know, I mean, maybe not, I guess not. Some schools have had that experience, some have had bans. And I'm good with it all.
I was just gonna say what Mark says, the teachers doesn't seem like there is an undermining effect to this. So, my personal opinion was to have all the phones taken, have those little pouches, they put them in and leave them for the duration of the 7 hours and then give them back to them at the end of the day. But from what I'm hearing from the teachers here, that there doesn't seem to be an issue with it. And so, given that point, I think I go along with them and leave it as it is, myself, until it does become an issue, later on, if there is an issue. But as John said, we have about the right number of students, so that there isn't an issue with it. If we were a big metropolitan city like New York or Chicago, where they have huge population of kids going to school, then I think there would be more incidences with that. But if the teachers are fine with it, I don't see a problem leaving it the way it is. That's my opinion.
I was gonna say that, we have to think about us as adults and how we communicate, I think. I mean, how many times do the teachers reach out to you on your phone during the day? Or how many times is the principal saying, hey, Mrs. Moore, and so if the teachers are doing it, and I'm doing it too. I mean, Tanya's texting me, and Mrs. Chapin, okay, we're doing it too. So we're guilty of it also. And they're seeing it, so how are we gonna be like, okay, so we can do it, but you can't do it?
Well, that's still the case here, right? Because the teacher can use the phone in the class even if they're telling the kids they can't use it during the class. Which I think is fine. I think that's the point earlier, right? That was like teaching what's appropriate and what's not.
Kids are in school, you're not in school, you're past that now.
But if you're on it all the time, what example are you setting? You know what I mean?
Oh, I said
what kind of example are you setting?
Staff
That's
cell
basically
phone
a
use should be
staff.
considered as well.
So I mean,
And that is part of the staff handbook, appropriate time and use, and the staff are asked to use them at their prep time and lunchtime when students aren't in class. And if they do need to use them in class for emergency purposes, that's one thing, but not to have them out and be on them during class when you're teaching is one of the things in the staff handbook. For that example, we should be modeling the appropriate uses and not creating a double standard. I know adults versus kids are two different things, but at the same time, if it's not right for one, it shouldn't be right for anyone.
Go ahead, Stephen.
That it's I feel like it's an interesting time to be having this discussion, a good time. I don't know if it's a developmental thing or if it's just kind of developmental as students get older, or if it's a societal thing, but I feel like a lot of high schoolers are starting to go, almost envy us who had a childhood without them. They're starting to see it. They're starting to see the negative. They're starting to acknowledge that there's social media traps, and there's addiction, and there's, why can't I just go outside? It's starting to resonate with them, and I don't know if it's just as kids get older, that's what's going to start happening, or if it's just as a society it was wow, too much too soon. I don't know, but just find it interesting. That's all.
They're exposed to more than they can process and handle. Developmentally, they are not able and capable of exposing all that's being thrown at them on a regular basis.
My oldest is absolutely jealous that I had a childhood without phone. She uses it.
Right.
It's not like she doesn't, but she acknowledges it. She can see it. She can see the difference. And if that's happening because of her age, then something to consider. Developmentally, that they're able to learn and process that world differently than a middle schooler or an elementary school.
We already thought about a baby step, going off of what you just said, I have my wheels turning. What about a voluntary surrender at the beginning of the day? Give the students a choice. Hey, turn it in the office, cell phone free day if you want it. Detach. Give them the choice. Outside of, doing this policy too, but making sure they're aware of that.
A challenge.
Yeah, something like that.
I'll take any cell phone for the high.
Anybody wants to do that? I'll take
You
it.
can have mine. I would gladly give it up.
They might surprise us.
Yeah, I think it would be an
They
interesting thing
talked
to
about
do.
those, a challenge week or a challenge day, just to see how many kids can appreciate, take another, don't have to worry about it, don't think twice about it.
I mean, it's just the modern version of a dance marathon. Can you go the 24 hours or
Right.
not? How far can you go? Who's paving? It's interesting. I also think that you know, beyond our school district, just as a society, that it should just start being baked into school. Like, I'm not saying have a class about cell phones, but, you know, as kids get older, technology and exposure to technology that we are providing them from third grade, whether they have it through their parents or not, there's things to be learned in each stage of development. I think is faced with different challenges based on their age. Like in elementary school, it's, you know, don't give your name out, don't give your location out. But as you get older, it's like you got a footprint, you got a digital footprint for the rest of your life, you know, and being connected and not, you know, it used to be if you tripped and fell in lunch and fell in your spaghetti, you know, you just had to make it to the end of the day. Everybody would forget by the next day. That doesn't exist anymore. You know, somebody takes a picture of it, or they'll remind you the next day, or just keep talking about it in group chatting. There's so much, it doesn't end, yeah. So even if it's like once a month having a, you know, something in the auditorium, having a guest speaker, so, you know, just like, hey, I acknowledge it. Here's some tools, here's ways of thinking of this, and just because you delete it, it's not gone. And we just live in a world where that's not going away.
It sounds like most people are in agreement on the tiered level and that policy needs to match the handbooks.
Well, especially that administration and teachers, and mostly, that they are giving that feedback, that it's, you know.
I think all this will go
They
back
seem to have it handled.
I'll also go back to policy committee.
Right,
We can take
so
all
when we
this
take it
back
back,
together
I mean,
again and
that
see
seems to be
what
mostly
redraft can come up
nobody has
to
a
bring back for
huge-
first reading.
Do policies also include like what happens when you violate them? Like, does that become part of the policy too?
It can,
Like,
it doesn't have to, it can.
I didn't know
We
if
can
that,
attach
like,
a procedure.
Usually the procedures are separate from the policy. And the handbooks are not, the handbooks will reference policy, and sometimes if it's like the bowling policy, dress code, they just get copy paste and put in the handbook. It's not required to be.
I just didn't know if that was something we needed to look at for.
The lack of statutory reference means there's no underlying statute. Maine School Management ever put together any collective data about this, or, and who wrote this? Is this Maine School Management? This is, because they're all, the numbering's all the same, I realize all the districts are all the same.
From 2017, I'm assuming so, it was 2017, the last time this was adopted. So, there were no updates in their bank of policies. This was all local conversation and change to adapt with the times.
I guess closing comment for me. If we're gonna let the virus in, this is probably how you manage it with the policy that's been proposed. I think the idea is about tiering and all that, and all help put some skeleton into it. I'll just ask that question without needing an answer, but why would we introduce a virus or something that would undermine our education process that we're all committed to? So that's it, I don't need an answer.
The only addition I would have is the first half of the JICH references cell phones or other electronic devices, and then the second half just says cell phone / watch. So the consistency of what it would be might be important just to update.
I also think it's probably important to acknowledge that all of us are feeling both. You know, like.
Feeling what?
Both. Like, do I wish I could go, no cell phones ever? But, you know, this is the world we're living in.
You
So
can.
I got both. I got both, but at the end of the day, high schoolers that graduate are gonna go on to college who aren't gonna have cell phone bans, or jobs that aren't gonna have cell phone bans, and there is a point to having to learn how to manage that, so.
I have questions a little, or just conversation about the searching a phone, if there's a reasonable suspicion of a violation. Yeah. Knowing what was on that phone, what is that gonna change? I don't think we should have to search a kid's phone. I think if they're doing something that you don't like, it's done,
So-
regardless of what they were doing on it.
That
I
is,
think it's a sticky situation for teachers to be going through a kid's phone.
that is italicized because that was previously in the policy, and we had concerns and questions about the legality of it, but also the ability and who are we to be, one, to be searching through personal property like that in that regard. And so it was italicized to bring, to get legal counsel and go, is that really something that is the school's purview to
Well,
be
think
doing?
if it's a backpack that
Correct,
has
or a
knife
locker,
in it
or a locker.
whatever, but a
Right.
cell phone is, I mean, whether they were looking at gay porn or looking up an algorithm for something.
Right.
isn't
If
gonna
it's our laptop and our technology that we've assigned,
Yes.
we have something to go back, we have something to follow up on. If it's personal property like that, is it really our business to be searching through? The administration is very uncomfortable with that being in there. And that was brought up to be addressed of what is our role here and how far does that really go? So,
Courts have given you a lot of leeway in searching,
they have,
and I doubt very much you need probable cause to open somebody's cell phone up.
Need a password though.
What, there's a whole lot of things going on, but as a
I mean,
practical
like,
matter,
that's-
you can, that's a,
Is cheating an issue with phones ever, or is that a concern? Like, I don't know. Like,
We have not dealt with it at the high school.
No.
in my tenure here, it didn't come up, cell phones were not involved like that. And even when there's violations, for the most part, it isn't student-to-student use in the building. It's parents contacting the kids during the school day. That's the biggest violation of the contact.
But they
Or kids communicating with students who aren't in school. That's their communication. It's not somebody in the class next door. It's not somebody they're gonna see at lunch. That's not how and why they're communicating. It's-
Maybe we ought to have parents come in for this workshop.
Well, I hope they're watching. I hope they're taking advantage of watching tonight, and I know people are. I think this is a conversation that is, it is shifting. It is changing a little bit, and these conversations are part of that shift and change. And ultimately, parents and families have to make their own decisions and figure out what is best. Everyone has their different opinion and approach to it. I know how we approach it in our household. It's different than other households. But that's our parental rights, and that's our choosing. And holding off as long as possible before they have one in their hands that has been our goal. That's just how we believe. I want them to have as little of this as possible until they absolutely have to. Once they get it, they never get away from it. And so that's how we choose in our household. That's our choice.
thank you for proving my point.
So,
But I do think just in a discussion going forward, it is important to always acknowledge that we are, in a lot of cases, introducing technology to kids in elementary school for all the right reasons, but they're all interconnected. Like, if they don't have this,
there's other
they can still
device.
get texts on their laptops. You know, like, if we're introducing it, I think it's our responsibility to teach them however we decide to, at whatever level and stages, to use it appropriately.
We meaning the parent?
No, we meaning the school. If the school is providing the technology and in some cases introducing technology to kids in elementary school, we have to bear some responsibility in that education, using it by the time they get to high school, that they can manage it,
Hopefully.
hopefully. I mean, that's,
You said high schoolers have laptops, what do middle schoolers have?
Laptops. Grades 3 through 12 all have laptops, and
But
K
isn't
to
the
2
goal
have iPads.
For everyone to have iPads eventually? Like, isn't that what we're already working towards?
That's our plan, is to refresh and change out, and everyone will be with an iPad. Everyone still have one-to-one technology.
Okay, yeah, I was
Yeah.
curious.
But the middle schoolers don't bring their laptops home anymore, right?
Correct. That's a change, yes. One little thing we can control and do.
Any other discussions, comments, questions? This won't be the end of this conversation, clearly, so.
Maybe we should scare the parents, so they show up and just pretend like we're gonna do a full-on ban. Like some of the schools have done, because that seems to be the only way they
Half
actually
of
care
them
to
be
get
rioting,
involved.
half of them be
I
celebrating.
mean, at least then they'd have some conversation.
Let's just ask Allison if she can be like, talking about potential cell phone ban. And then at the next meeting, it'll
Give us a
be,
good headline, okay?
Should bring it into that.
It's a poll, good idea or not?
Well, thank you everyone for your feedback and everything on that, that was very helpful. All right. Now, moving on, bear with me for a second. To, yes, number 9. In my pile, like Dave Murphy over here. All right. Number 9, to see what action the board wishes to take regarding entering into an executive session for a personnel matter requested by the superintendent, section 1, MRSA 405. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Amy. Do I have a second? Any discussion on entering into an
Quick
executive
break,
session?
we will break before we go in.
Yeah, as soon as we vote on it. All those in favor of entering into executive session? All right, it's unanimous, thank you. We'll take a brief recess before we enter into session.
Yes, it was.